Two American pilots are trapped inside a Guinea prison during a deadly riot. Military forces opened fire with live ammunition. Tear gas filled the air, and dozens are reportedly dead. These men were simply refueling their plane when armed soldiers surrounded them with AK-47s. Now they're calling for help from inside a war zone. But here's what makes this story absolutely infuriating. We've been tracking it since Friday. Fabio Espinel Nunez from New Jersey and Brad Schlenker from Chicago. They've been held for 6 weeks after what should have been a routine fuel stop. Guinea military stormed their aircraft with over 100 soldiers screaming in French while pointing assault rifles. Now, the pilots say they followed proper procedures, but Guinea claims that they violated airspace without permission. Now they're trapped in a prison riot with gunfire and tear gas, despite a court order for their release. Their families are begging for government intervention, but so far we have not received any response from the White House. We have reached out. We are still awaiting. Now, these Americans, they're under fire, and we are desperately waiting for the president and the State Department to react. And speaking of being trapped in dangerous situations that you never saw coming, something is brewing and you can feel it. Well, the problem, you never know the full story until after the crash, after the collapse, after it's too late. Now, these pilots thought they were making a simple fuel stop. Now they're dodging bullets in a foreign prison. But here's the brutal truth. You can protect yourself after disaster strikes. You have to be ready now. Now, all this uncertainty, the chaos, the warning signs around us may be pointing towards economic catastrophe. While our government fails Americans abroad at the moment, smart people are protecting their wealth with precious metals. Noble Gold Investments helps you secure real assets before the next crisis hits. Don't wait until you're trapped. Visit nextnewsgold.com or call the number on your screen and see if you can qualify for one of these 3-ounce American Virtues silver rounds. Now let's get back to these Americans who have been so far abandoned. Now, over the weekend, CBS News picked up on the story. I did reach out to the White House. I did get a response. I believe they are actively formulating a response. This is the post we made to update. The White House was contacted, given 6 p.m. Eastern deadline for comment regarding the continued detention of U.S. citizen Brad Schlenker, despite a court-ordered release and reports of a deadly prison riot. As of this posting, no response has yet been provided. I do anticipate one probably within the next 24 hours, however. And the good news is after we aired that report on Friday, CBS News and the New York Post covered it over the weekend. This is the report that came in from CBS News. It gives you some good background, and then we're going to go into my exclusive interview with John, who is Brad's brother, and we're going to play for you the audio recording that happened inside the prison when Brad called John to tell him what was happening about the riots and just, I guess, 35 inmates massacred at the prison. So you can imagine the terror of these two Americans having to witness this. And well, you're going to hear it all firsthand. But let's go to this report real quick here from CBS, give you some good background.
Brad Schlenker's family says this all started with what they describe as a paperwork issue during that fuel stop you mentioned in Guinea. His family has been making consistent calls to state, local, even federal officials for help to try and finally bring Brad home.
I'm still being held without any justification. So it's just absolute madness.
Inside a Guinea prison in West Africa for 41 days, Brad Schlenker from Wheaton explains what happened to him when he landed a private plane in Conakry, the capital city.
And opened the door and were met with multiple machine guns, 3 armed vehicles, and about 80 other heavily armed individuals.
Schlenker is a pilot, and according to his family, a good one with 40 years of experience. He was arrested in Guinea along with his co-pilot, an American citizen from New Jersey. It was supposed to be a brief fuel stop, flying a family on their private plane en route to Dubai. His brother John says what authorities there are calling a paperwork violation quickly escalated into a prison stay.
In his eyes, he didn't do anything wrong. He was cleared to land and has that actually recorded on tape.
John says Brad calls home daily from jail and that as an American, he's being treated well, but desperately wants to come home to his wife and kids. The family has reached out to the U.S. Embassy, members of Congress, private attorneys, but John says the response has been frustrating.
I think he knows that he will get out. It's just a matter of when, but after 44 days of being in prison, you probably go through some periods of immense stress and desperation. Like, are you guys doing anything? What's going on?
Now, Brad's family is hoping that pressure from federal officials, even the White House, can finally bring Brad home. We're live in Geneva. I'm Marissa Perlman, CBS News, Chicago.
So here's the part that should really make your blood boil. A Guinea court actually ordered these pilots released, but they're still sitting in prison. Local authorities are ignoring their own legal system. Meanwhile, family members are making desperate pleas on social media because traditional diplomatic channels have failed. Brad's brother is literally begging people to share their story because the mainstream media won't cover it properly. And thankfully, though, we are getting some traction now from CBS and the New York Post. So Brad called me today with a desperate plea, and I want to get into that. But first, you can see some of the images. This was the early detention that happened right after they were arrested on the tarmac. And these were the early conditions as well. Of course, these are not the conditions currently because now they're in a prison. They were sleeping on the floor. And, of course, the cash demands, the extortion that's being demanded by the family. We're going to get into that, too, with John. And, of course, the understaffed embassy. We'll talk about that and what that means because there literally is no ambassador on the ground there, just junior staffers with no real authority. And, of course, that we need to have top-level U.S. intervention right now to end this entire thing. We're going to get into that right now. I'm going to get you the video of my exclusive with John speaking out after his brother called him from inside the Guinea prison, reporting on the riot, the military response, the gunfire, the tear gas, and dozens killed. He remains jailed. So we need your folk. We need you guys to help us spread this far and wide immediately. Listen. Got some breaking news. Remember that story we brought you last week of the American pilots who are being basically held hostage in a Guinea prison? It's gained some traction, and we're excited to see that from some of the mainstream news outlets like CBS and the New York Post. But there's been some shocking, absolutely shocking developments. I'm joined now by one of the pilot, Brad Schlenker, his brother John, who just sent me some very troubling audio we're going to play for you from inside the prison. There was a riot that broke out. The military got involved. A gunfire, gunshots, 15 minutes back and forth. 35 or so prisoners are now dead. John, this is your first time here with us. First of all, how's your brother doing, and how's your family holding up right now?
My brother's not doing very well. And that was the hardest, probably, audio for me to listen to in my life. So, to be honest with you, when you hear the audio, I don't enjoy listening to it because it's very, very troubling. And
Well, John, we're going to play it for the audience because the world needs to hear it. So, if you're okay with that, we're going to present that.
It's time to pull out all the stops. This is a life and death situation at this point.
We've got some of the transcript here. I'm talking about waking up at 6:30 in the morning, a riot breaking out, prisoners revolted. So we're going to play this for you for the people right now. We got two recordings from the phone call. Did he call you? How did this phone call transpire initially?
Yeah, he called me from inside the prison.
And does he have access to a phone? How is that possible?
Yeah, he's got access.
Okay. I don't want to reveal if we don't need to get into some of those details. But let's go ahead and we're going to listen to this first recording here.
Hey, John, please deliver this to the appropriate party, to the White House. Marco Rubio, Mr. Trump. This is Brad Schlenker calling you from Guinea prison. we're begging for help. Very scary morning. Woke up at 6:30 with a lot of yelling. A riot broke out. And two of the buildings, one next to ours, prisoners revolted, and they broke down gates. They went out onto the common area. Continue. I'm sorry, we had to hide the phone real quick because things are very tenuous here. And then the prison called in the military police, and soon after that, shots started ringing out for probably 15, 20 minutes, sometimes a lot of them. Bullets were hitting our building, and it's quite scary. It's not safe here. We need help. Sorry. 32 prisoners died.
32 prisoners died. And then there was a second recording here. Let's continue this.
Sorry, it just kind of got choked up there. So, also, before the thing was over, they fired off tear gas in the building where the riot occurred, and it was right next to us. So the tear gas came into our building. We had to put whatever we had over our faces so we could breathe, throw water in our eyes, and it's now 6:30. And there's no electricity. There's no running water. The prisoners that were in the buildings that were damaged, they've now put them in our rooms in this building, and I think we've got 5 extra guys basically sitting on the floor in our cell. Most of the other rooms have about the same because they don't know what else to do with them. So, look, Mr. Trump, I know you're busy. I get that, but we're begging for help.
Begging for help. That's the message right now, and I can tell you, John, I have not heard back from the White House as of late with respect to the email that I sent to the press room there on Friday. But I am hopeful because of the reporting and the light we've been able to shed on this, to see the developments like we've just seen with CBS, we've seen with the New York Post, and of course some of your own appearances on other outlets. John, have you heard anything at all from the congressman, from the State Department, anything?
I was informed by John McGuire's office today that they're contacting and talking with the State Department, and I was told that I would hear from the State Department today. And that's all I have right now with the U.S. government is John McGuire and his office. They're doing the best they can to get me as high as possible so that they can arrange something where there's a diplomatic negotiation or resolution for this. And so I have yet to hear from him yet, but that's what's next, I've been told. Now,
to recap, for people who may be just learning of this, could you tell us what happened with your brother, why he's being detained, kind of walk us through that moment again?
Sure. They left Suriname, which is southeast of Venezuela, to Dubai on a trip, private jet with a family from Brazil. They stopped midway in Conakry, Guinea. Obviously, they had to refuel, pilot rest, and they entered into their airspace after filling out all the appropriate paperwork. The international flight plan was approved. They were informed when they were approaching Guinea that They needed some specific landing permit. They looked for it. They couldn't find it in any of their records. They weren't able to call. They were not able to contact their third-party flight planning company because they were overseas. They didn't have a satellite phone. They got permission regardless from their superiors. They cleared them to land 3 times. And when they landed, they were greeted with machine guns, 80 armed guards. They were put in custody for 3-4 days in a police station. They thought they were going to get out and resolve this as an administrative issue, which is really what is at its worst. I ended up now being we're on our 44, 45 days of in being detained in prison, both Fabio and my brother Brad, as you see there.
Now, I just want to be clear here, so people aren't confused. The photograph we're seeing is obviously not the current situation. This was the early detention.
This is them in the early stages of their interrogation, police station.
Yeah, I mean, they look happy, they look fed, they look nourished, but now they're literally sitting in a prison that just had a riot breakout, and 35 prisoners are now dead. Thankfully, your brother is alive, but clearly he's in his cell now. Is overcrowding occurring, so the situation is getting even more desperate.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I don't know what it takes to get national attention and for this to get resolved, but this is now clearly a life and death situation, and it's pretty horrific. And as a brother, I'm pretty much one of the only voice pieces for him when he calls me. He has no power or control from there, and we all know that this has to come from the above at the diplomatic level, and I don't know what it takes to get to that level. I'm just a common person. We're just a common family, but you would think that in America, hopefully, we can get to the top so that we can get this resolved. They're being held unlawfully detained, and we need to get this solved.
The judge initially did say that you guys are free to go, but then the military stepped in.
Correct, and the judge wanted to get 2 other judges to bolster up, his decree. So, and then things, got crazy. Who's in control, basically.
So I need to ask you this because, and I know very little about the politics of that nation, but what I did learn on my initial investigation was that there was a coup, a military junta had taken over, and one of the primary locations for their takeover was the airport, probably one of the most valuable pieces of property there that's controlled by the government, which stands to reason why they were allowed to fly in. And my suspicion is that they saw, a fancy jet, American pilots, rich family being flown around. They saw a cash cow. They saw an opportunity. And, I mean, this is just speculation, of course, but with respect to the military had taken over the airport, that they probably said, okay, yeah, let them land, and then we're going to go get them, because it almost happened simultaneously. Is that a fair assessment?
Well, they very easily should have and could have said, sorry, you don't have the specific landing permit needed to land here. Go to your alternate. And they would have said, no problem. And they would have went there. But they almost baited them in, as you said, and allowed them to land. And now we're on our 45th day, having 2 American pilots held hostage over what should have been a administrative error that should have been resolved in 2 to 3 days with the embassy. Now we have 2 people fighting for their lives, and who knows if we're going to get them out of there alive.
And your family's already spent thousands of dollars trying to pay respect to the military?
Yeah, there's been fines that we're aware of, whether it's called bail or bond money, to try to get them out of prison into a hotel. And that gets really confusing as to who has the money and where it's at. And so we decided that we're not going to, if it's as easy as $5,000 a piece per pilot as a fine, okay, so be it. Here's the money. Where do we sign? Where's the court documentation to release them? Let's get this over with. But it doesn't seem to be that easy. And again, if you go back to those two guys that came down from those British guys, it's they were promised to get out, and then all of a sudden they were walked back in, and then they spent another 30 to 40 days there. So I don't know who to believe, what to believe, and who to trust anymore.
You're talking about the parallel case of the two UK pilots from last year?
Yeah, they were not pilots. They were just two guys coming down, I think, to rescue some kind of weather vane balloon or something like that. They were there to rescue it or do research on it, and they had all the paperwork that they thought they needed, and they were accused of, when they got there, they were accused of being spies and held 100 days in prison. And then it took the somebody at the at the prime minister level or above to come down there and usher them out of prison.
Now, with respect to the U.S. Embassy there, you and I have spoken about this. There's not even an ambassador there, just junior embassy staff that really don't have any power. Correct.
That's yes, that is the situation. And again, Nick Checkers, again, 2-3 weeks ago, when the president of Guinea, the new president of Guinea, was being inaugurated, they had a lot of dignitaries come in. Nick Checkers was one of those, and he had a very high up representative to Africa from the United States. He was actually in Conakry and obviously did not visit my brother Fabio because I don't think he knew about it. And again, Mark Rubio.
Well, from what I understand, Geneva Convention requires if an American is being detained overseas, then they need to notify the embassy and notify the United States. I mean, I've dealt with similar situations like this years ago in a case with an individual named Scott Loper, who was being held in Canada, and his Geneva Convention rights were violated because Canada never notified the U.S. government of the detention. So it sounds like you guys, your family, is doing the heavy lifting here. And they may be in violation of Geneva Convention.
Yeah, you know that those laws better than I do, but that's a good point. You would know better than me. I'm not privy on the specifics of that, but all I can tell you is that I don't think Nick Checkers nor Mark Rubio know anything about these two prisoners. They do probably now. They're probably getting word now, but the question becomes now, is it too late as we see what's happening?
Okay. I will make some additional phone calls here on my side. I know some people that know people in Rubio's orbit. You're expecting a phone call from the State Department today, so if you keep us posted on that, and we're going to continue to track this story. John, our prayers are with you and your brother. What's the other pilot's name?
Fabio.
Fabio. Our prayers are with both of them, especially in this time right now of clearly distressing matters on the ground there in Guinea with this prison riot, which is just absolutely wild. I did not expect that to happen today, but you can never really predict what will happen in these third world nations. And
I was hoping to get a call from my brother that was like, yeah, no big deal. There was, I don't know, I might have heard one gunshot in the distance, but nothing big deal. And then I got this voicemail message, which was the worst that you can get. The worst would be,
Well, John, here's I'm going to give you the floor before we go here. This is your moment to speak directly to Marco Rubio and President Trump right now. I'm going to let you have the floor. Go ahead. Tell them what you want them to know.
President Trump, my brother loves you. He respects you. Same with Marco Rubio. He is a loyal citizen. He loves America. He loves his country, loves God, loves his family. So he just needs some help.
All right, John. All right, we'll keep on this story and keep me posted, and keep your family in our prayers.
All right, thanks.
All right. Okay, guys, we need all hands on deck for this right now. Please, you heard the heartfelt plea right there to the President of the United States, to Marco Rubio. We need your prayers up right now, okay? Pray for safety and pray for a swift resolution from the executive branch here, from the President to the State Department, so that no more lives are lost, and then we can get this family, these pilots home to their families immediately. And I need your help right now to please repost this so we can get even more coverage on this. We're getting some coverage right now. We've seen from CBS, we've seen from the New York Post as well, but this is just, it's not enough. We need everybody in America to understand what's at stake here, what's happening, so that we can get these guys home. Thank you for watching. Thank you for sharing. So that was my interview earlier today, and we have some interesting video that just came in from the prison riot, gunfire erupting in central Conakry, Guinea's capital, near its main prison, causing major chaos. Reports suggest a possible jailbreak. Security forces locked down the area with armored vehicles. Authorities have not yet commented. So here's some video from that moment that we tracked down.
Alors, à l'instant où je vous fais cette vidéo, les tirs continuent toujours aux alentours de la maison centrale. Et d'ailleurs, cela s'est propagé. C'est toute la ville de Kaloum maintenant qui est prise plutôt. Et donc, des éléments des forces spéciales avec échange de tirs avec d'autres groupes qu'on ignore pour le moment.
So that's the footage directly from news sources on the ground there. And these pilots, they were just refueling, making the detention even more outrageous. CBS Chicago covering it for nearly 6 weeks. Brad Schlenker has been detained in Guinea. His family said the U.S. government has offered little help so far. And here's more. DNA covering it. 2 American pilots jailed in the Republic of Guinea after refueling their plane. They're accused of violating the country's airspace. Will have to spend 6 weeks in prison. Authorities say they did not obtain permission before landing. And that, of course, is disputed by the pilots and their own recordings. This is the New York Post when they covered it over the weekend. And we also have this. I'm tagging the powers that be about this. The American pilot being held in Guinea simply refueling his plane and fiancée. Lauren, our dear friends of ours, please watch the video, repost and continue to tag so we can get our friend home safely. So that looks like Fabio in the middle there. And of course, there was also coverage in New York as well. Let's see what they had to say there.
2 pilots, including one from New Jersey, jailed in a West African country for almost 6 weeks.
And they tell CBS News New York that it happened when they landed to refuel. Christine Sloan spoke with the 2 men on the phone.
Ewing resident Fabio Espinel Nunez has years of experience as a pilot, but the 33-year-old tells us nothing could prepare him for the terrifying ordeal around 6 weeks ago when the Republic of Guinea military forced its way on the plane he and co-pilot Brad Schlenker had landed in the West African nation in order to refuel.
There were around 100 army people, and they were pointing AK-47s at us and talking in French, which we do not know. More like screaming in French.
Nunez and Schlenker speaking to us on the phone from the prison they're being held in Guinea, describing what sounds like a scene out of a movie.
Around 4 to 5 heavily armored vehicles pointing guns at us and saying that we need to go to the ground.
We've got the transcripts of the radio transmissions, all clearly revealing the fact that we were innocent and ambushed.
Nunez was flying a Brazilian family from Suriname to Dubai on a private plane. The flight log given to us shows they had clearance to land, but the government charging them with violating Guinean airspace.
The military has taken over the government there. And for whatever reason, the civil government is allowing their release and the military is not.
Nunez's fiancé asking the U.S. government to step in. They say the embassy there isn't doing much.
We're begging for their release. I mean, this has been over a month. We're scared.
Mr. Trump, can you please come down here and get us out of here?
We reached out to the U.S. State Department, but no one has gotten back to us. Congresswoman Bonnie Watson-Coleman's office also says they're looking into Nunez's plight, but he says he's losing hope.
Hopeless and helpless, too. It's been terrible here.
Stevenson says 3 judges from the civil government have already cleared the 2 who are expected to be in court in the coming weeks, but the hope is that the U.S. government will get them out before then. In Ewing, New Jersey, Christine Sloan, CBS News, New York.
The pilots tell us that the family they were flying is now holed up in a hotel, and they are the ones ordering food for them to be sent to where they're being detained. We also did reach out to the Republic of Guinea's mission here in New York. They said that they'll get back to us soon.
So we're still waiting for the White House to get back to us. We have an email out. We did notify them on Friday. And then we also put out another email, and they did respond to that email. They specifically asked what time the deadline was. According to our publishing schedule here, we gave them until 6 p.m. Eastern, and we did not hear a response. So I did follow up with them, and we have some feelers out on the ground tomorrow at the White House to see if we can get some more direct response. But the White House clearly has been notified, and we are just simply in a holding pattern, waiting for action. So the pilots are now directly appealing to President Trump to intervene, and they know that as right now, the State Department hasn't done very much. The embassy, very little. They have no real authority there because there is no ambassador. As you heard in my interview with John, he was awaiting the phone call from the State Department. Not sure if they did reach out to him today, but these men followed international aviation law. They made a fuel stop and ended up in a nightmare scenario. One phone call from a strong American president could end this. But right now, they are on their own. So this is what happens when America looks weak on the world stage. Foreign governments think they can jail our citizens without consequences. These pilots deserve better. Their families deserve answers, and every American should be outraged that as of right now, our government has not done anything. So do you think that President Trump should step in and resolve this matter immediately? Let me know in the comments, and while you're there, check out the Next News merch shop to show your support for real journalism that does not abandon American stories.
The system controls information. Information control is power.
They don't want you to see this.
The truth only survives together. They don't want this shared. Share this now. You know out.